All right, everyone, welcome to the May 20th, 2021 joint meeting of the Finance Committee and Capital Planning Committee. So again, welcome. And our first agenda item for the joint, our actually only agenda item for the joint meeting is a discussion with Chief O'Brien around some capital purchases. So, welcome, Chief.
Thank you. Good evening. Our vests are due every 5 years. They expire at the 5-year mark. They're all tracked by serial numbers for each officer. The majority of my department officers' vests expire in December. So we usually do an article at the town meeting, but after speaking with Laura and the town administrator, we decided to do it through a capital. From now on, hopefully down the road, every 5 years, I'll work that into the budget. So since it's basically an operating cost and it is a reoccurring expense, it's $23,281.65. There is a grant. After I purchase the vests and they get issued, they give us a couple $100 back. We usually put that in the revolving vest account because within the 5 years, if I get a new officer or a vest gets ruined, I have the money to repurchase another vest for them.
Can you do me a favor and can you let everybody know the timing issues that you ran into with the quote and why we kind of decided to go a different route?
It was coming in at $18,000. That's why we're going to go to an article. When we got the new quote for the vests, roughly just a few weeks ago, they went up a couple $100 a vest, so now it's up over 20,000. So we figured we could put it into the capital.
And since we were a little off on our schedule this year, a little off, just a little.
Understatement.
Understatement. That's why we decided, since we hadn't really finished or closed any of the processes, we thought we had opportunity to kind of do it this way and make it clean. So that was the recommendation.
So it was just a timing issue, you didn't have it like when you came in, presented to us?
Correct. Well, it was under 20,000.
Oh, okay. And you said normally we do put it on the...
It's usually a town article.
I thought those were built in. No? Okay.
No.
I thought they were built into the budget before.
No, we don't have any. Excuse me?
What do you do with the old ones?
Tournament.
Do they give you no credit?
Yeah, do they give you no credit?
They're just not, they're no good anymore.
They get destroyed.
Yeah. They're all tracked by serial number, so.
And this isn't more of a capital question, but it's just on my mind. So going forward, now that they've kind of hit the threshold to be capital, now they'll become part of your capital 5-year plan rotation.
Either that or I'll try to put them into my budget as an operating thing every 5 years. And it's just down in that 5th year, you'll see that vest line item go up to purchase new vests.
And it may depend on how many you have to buy.
Yeah, every 5 years, it's going to be at least 17, because that's what we're at now.
So would it be smarter to have like that additional money in the budget each year, 5,000 per year?
It doesn't have to be every year, it's just every 5 years.
Right. But to
I
accumulate.
can't buy them early. They won't sell me a vest for Officer Ray if he's only had it 3 years.
You can't roll your budget that 5 year, no, we can't roll it.
No, so it's really becomes a
Accumulating it over the
footnote.
5 years.
Right, so it becomes a line item that you use for other equipment in the off years.
Or you have a footnote. So we have a similar situation in IT, for example, where we have certain contracts that we only will pay every 3 years or something. So this being an off year, it's a zero line item, but we need to footnote so that when the year comes up of renewal, that it's not looked at as, oh my God, as a massive increase. It's an expected bump, yeah, because of the timing.
And like we were talking earlier, same thing with cruisers. We're going to try to, starting FY23, work them into our budget so we don't have to come every year looking for a car. And when I first started, they were always in the operating budget.
Right.
Is there a current revolving vest account?
Yes. And I have 3 new officers going to the academy in September. I think there's like $3,200 or $3,300 in the revolving account now, so I'll buy their vest with that.
So just thinking about, so we know at minimum you're gonna have 17, but there could be years where you have more vests. So then obviously that year you'd know whether or not it needs to go capital or just operating. Okay.
Does it make sense, Paul, to increase this, to incorporate those 3 vests?
Well, I have the money already.
Okay.
because when we bought the vests, the last 5 years ago,
Yep,
they reimbursed us
that money, so you have.
some money, so we kept it in that revolving account for replacement or new officers.
Yep, okay.
So, makes sense to everybody? So, what we did proactively is, assuming we kind of thought this would probably be an okay conversation, I've gone ahead and kind of like adjusted for, we added it into the capital article, assuming we
Yes.
pass it tonight, that you pass it tonight, then we'll have the article, then we'll vote and make our recommendation on it too.
That was already, yep, we had discussed that and put that in, to the article that we had talked about. I think it's up to us just to make a motion and then take a vote. So,
Motion to vote?
Motion on the 23, 281.65 to purchase 21, is it vests? 21 vests.
yep. Any discussion? Any further discussion? A second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So, great, thank you, folks.
Beautiful.
Thank
Have a good night,
Excellent.
Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Just three of us?
Dan's here.
Dan's here, too.
Dan's sitting on the other side of the table tonight.
He's with the Patriots.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
All right,
Good
thank you
evening.
guys for coming, I appreciate it. Last minute.
Feel free to stay.
Yeah, really, if you have nothing better to do. Really, Michelle, really? No?
Isn't that good at times?
Remember when she used to be our friend?
Like us.
Yep. All right. Okay, well, we'll move on. So, we're good there. All right, so now basically we're gonna just dive in. Hopefully, everybody had a chance, didn't even get myself a copy yet. I had a chance to go through the warrant. Similar to, last year, I kind of went back and we had votes all over the place because so many articles were in shift and flux last year.
4 different times.
I think we did. I think we voted, 4 different times. I think you're right. So we're much, obviously, just because of the timing, it's much more solidified, but we don't have in print the budget the way we did last year. So last year, we actually voted on as written. We're not there from getting it in the print part, but, so that's why I gave everybody a copy. So, just from a logistics perspective, we'll start going through the articles. And then when we get to the omnibus budget, we'll kind of go off this. And last year, since we did it as written and we're not there, so we have to probably vote it just... We did kind of a, oh, and I do have a question.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I have a question, actually. Let me ask the question, but just before we get to it. Last year, and I had asked Phyllis this, but I didn't get a response back yet. Last year, we had solid waste and water separately in articles.
It's in the operating budget now.
Okay, so that's it, so we're just kind of putting it back, so we're gonna total omnibus, different than what, okay.
That's correct.
That's what I assumed, but
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure.
We did have it marked up, remember, Articles 6 and 7.
Yeah, okay,
I forget how the decision got made, but
okay.
it was folded
So
back in.
what I would make the recommendation then is maybe just to keep it simple. We can certainly go through if anybody has any questions remaining, but when we get time to vote, I could make the recommendation that we just vote the major categories. I think we did that the year before. I think we've done that in years past, right? Yeah. So we'll just do like a general government and public safety line item and just kind of do the votes that way.
But prior to that,
Nope, go ahead.
prior to that, we're going to review the revenue projections.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah,
projections.
there's an error in there's an error in the book, at page 5 in the book. In one of our edits, we didn't carry a number down. it's in balance. The revenue estimates
So,
are
first
in
page,
balance
first
with the-
page of what I
with
gave
the
you.
expenditures.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to understand how that compares to last year's, because we don't have that listed here. I want to understand where the projections on state aid came from.
Yep.
You know, there's been talk this week, actually, about that the tax revenues are way ahead of last year, and they are anticipating additional aid for education in cities and towns.
So, actually, do you want to just, before we dive into the articles, then I want to have that discussion?
Sure, I'd be glad to do that.
Okay, let's do that then. Do you want to ask specific questions, Dave, or you want general, that just that general?
Like to go through it. I mean, I'm trying to look at last year, what we projected, versus this year, what we projected, to see what the increase is. I just want to be cautious that we're not being too cautious in the budget before we go and take money out of any stabilization fund or anything like that. So, and this, kind of the way this year has broken out, where we didn't really see these numbers again until yesterday, I'm not comfortable with it.
Okay.
So,
Well, Jim, I think we'll be able to give you all the information you need.
Well, I'll try to do that. As to year over year, I didn't come prepared to do the year over year 21 to 22, but I can speak with some authority on most of the revenue portion, Madam Chairman. So if you want to go to page 5 of the books that I handed out, unless there's another document that you're working off of, I can address these things. First and foremost, on total revenue, on page 5, again, this was in a processing, this was a processing omission. The total revenue is 55,568,594, matches the proposed expenditure stuff. We got hung up over the overlay abatement thing. You can see the difference is exactly $600,000, and that was a bit in error. The levy limit in the incremental growth, the 29,350,328 is your fiscal 21 base levy number. The increment of 2.5% is 733,758. Your new growth number, I've spoken to Paula Wolf on a number of occasions on this number. You go conservatively in the spring, and there's not liable to be a whole lot more growth, by the way, come fall when you're doing your reconciliations between your your spring estimates and in your fall. If that grows, you've had a finance study commissioned, working with the Collins Center, I guess, year over year for a 5-year period of time. They're suggesting that you assume a $280,000 new growth number overall. I can tell you that, having spoken to the building inspector and having spoken to Paula on a number of occasions, there isn't a whole lot of new building construction going on out there, but there's a considerable amount of renovations going on. So you'll see that reflected. The assessors will pick that stuff up, and you're going to see when we get to the estimates of local receipts, you'll very likely generate in fiscal 22 some free cash, as something over the estimates that we have there for building permit activity, unless material shortages slow that activity down. We have seen, we are very cognizant of that, and we have seen it. There's no override limit but the tax levy limit from your initial revenue estimates is down considerably due to, and Melissa is here if you have any questions on that, you refinanced a lot of debt, including some,
The school and the Skate and Rock.
so the debt exclusion number is down year over year due largely to the refi, and a portion of that refi was outside debt or excluded debt. So you've got a $32.9 million revenue number. State aid, the cherry sheet income, we're now at the stage where the Senate Ways and Means Committee has put out recommendations. They vary slightly from the House, which in turn varies slightly from the governor's original House 1 proposal. The additional aid that the gentleman was referring to earlier is something, Laura, you and I had spoken to in one of our meetings. We knew that there would be additions to education aid overall in Chapter 70, but a lot of the aid that got loaded in to the process, into the House and now the Senate process, really doesn't affect the baseline for Chapter 70 formulation. It turned out, as we had predicted, to be a number of reserve accounts that the state is setting aside. And by the way, the House and Senate Ways and Means chairs are in accord with that. They're setting aside a lot of rescue money. They're not beefing up our Chapter 70 income estimates, but rescue money for distressed school districts that are still dealing with either racial disparities or COVID type things. So that's where the extra education aid is the revenue forecast and things look better. That's where they're adding it in and not into the baseline Chapter 70 number. And unrestricted local aid, which, for those of you who have been around on the FinCom for a while, it used to be called lottery aid at one time, but they call it unrestricted general government aid. That hasn't changed. That's been a flat line since the governor proposed it. When you look at Chapter 78 and your unrestricted aid, that's 94.5% of your total gross revenues, from your cherry sheet. You could see some when final numbers come through, which would be post-town meeting, and it's typical, and it's one of the reasons why you have fall town meetings. Enrollments, your school choice enrollments and your charter school enrollments and things become known, like they're not now. So you might get nicked a little bit come August and stuff when those numbers are in. You don't have huge numbers for charter school or school choice compared to a lot of other towns and a lot of other districts. So that's a good thing. So if there's going to be a swing, it's not going to be, huge in those numbers. So the local aid number, the gross number is a little bit higher, but there are offsets, and we've accounted for those offsets. Library aid, it goes directly to the library without appropriation, and in school choice, sending tuition goes to the districts that your kids are going to. So we've already offset those, and today's number is $12,339,000. And that's varied only from the governor's thing. It was a $6,000 difference when you got to the House, and now it's 30-something hundred. It's really, really minimal. So expect something close to that number unless you get a big hit, school choice or charter school. The estimates of local receipts. One category of the estimates of local receipts, we did lower our estimate. We're comfortable that we'll do that, but motor vehicle excise taxes. Year over year, by the way, from fiscal 20 to fiscal 21, your motor vehicle excise taxes actually went down. Your actual collections. Your revenue estimates, we've seen some trending, that your margins are getting a little too tight in your estimates of local receipts. And why should you worry about that? I'll let you know. But suffice to say that we lowered the motor vehicle excise tax estimates by about $105,000 or so, I think is what it was. Categorically, the rest of the categories we did not change. But again, when you look at your building permit fees, that part of your schedule, we think you're going to be really good on that, at least the way that things are looking at this time of the year. Let's get to the margins. That is the difference between your estimate of revenue and your actual revenues. On your schedule of estimated receipts that's part of the recap package, there are a number of categories, about 7 or 8 categories. You'll see on the sheet itself, they have arrows in the left-hand margin. Those are component parts of what the state calls the municipal revenue growth factor. And the state takes those items in your schedule into account when they're determining what your Chapter 70 aid is going to be, because they're measures of the community's wealth, your ability to, relatively speaking, your ability to pay. So in a very simplified, a super simplified example, if the state determines that your net school spending requirement for a given year will be $20 million, it's going to be a combination of a local contribution, East Bridgewater contribution, and Chapter 78. When you overestimate, when you run high at this time of year, come this time next year, the state's looking at, I'm sorry, so 20 million, so let's say that the split might be, East Bridgewater 7 million and the state 13 million in Chapter 78. The higher you go with this municipal revenue growth factor, the lower the Chapter 70 estimate in the succeeding year is going to be. Okay, you went from a margin that was much too high in motor vehicle excise taxes of like 18.3%. You're at 2.6% now. The difference between your estimate and your actuals. Okay, and right now, 8 automobile factories have been shut down in the United States. Okay, waiting for chips. Okay, new car sales, the prices are higher. Okay, so that's a good thing. But the biggest contributor to your estimates of motor vehicle excise taxes are your new cars, right? So, there may be a slowdown there, that kind of justifies things. But then let's talk about gaming that page. If you stay within 10% or so, the folks at DOR, look at this. If you're consistently lowballing this thing, they make you genuflect or write a letter or do whatever the heck it is anytime you're 10% or so, variance between your estimates and your actuals. It is possible that when you hit that 18.3% or so in fiscal 18, in 19, you guys jacked that revenue estimate up by $240-something thousand. And that, lowered the margin, and then year over year to, you got about a 2.3% spread. You want to be within that 10% play range, okay? I know overall it's only a couple of $1 million on $50 million, but it's also, if you can create that space, you're contributing more to your free cash balance. When you close your books out, actual revenues over estimates, you're a little bit better. You're a little bit better off on your on your free cash calculation for the next fiscal year. So we went conservative on you. We only did it with one category, we left the others alone. We could have tweaked those and then talked for 5 hours instead of 15 minutes, on this, but we wanted to recalibrate and reset your direction. So what you're seeing is about 92% of, our overall estimate is at about .92, close to that .9, that I was looking at before, but it takes a little bit of money off the table right now, but looking ahead to Chapter 70 calculations and generating free cash and things that happen, okay? Building slows down, or the auto industry has a 6-month hiccup or something like that. We're accounting for that stuff now, so that's where we went with the estimates of local receipts. The other public works ones, I cannot speak authoritatively to it. I know you folks and John have been talking about it. I trust the ground you covered was covered well. And I just, I've got a pretty narrow bandwidth here time-wise, and there was no point in my going back over somebody else's work already, which, by the way, has been validated by your able finance team. Melissa, Phyllis, and Paula. We've worked together. Those three and Rebecca have really carried the town hall back to you. After waiting all this time to finish work off. The free cash estimate for budgeting purposes, I was told, assumed $1 million. I guess that was probably the number. In this spending plan, we commit a little bit better than a little more than half of that.
You're committing a little more than half of that to the operating budget?
To the debt portion, to articles,
okay, all right.
to articles in the debt portion, we don't want to tie that to recurring expenses. Okay, so we did everything we could to tie it to.
So isn't that money supposed to be coming out of the capital stabilization fund?
That's a separate line item.
But it's not capital, it's the operation.
It's general stabilization.
Okay, yeah, the general stabilization number, my understanding is that anticipating the worst, when you had your January meeting last year, you parked this $1.6 million just in case. And we put, what, $1,079,000 or something to your capital, from general stabilization to your capital, and I forgot at this moment, I forget where the rest went. We drew down that set aside that you made.
Well, what are we going to do about that next year? Take from the rest of the set aside?
So I think there was part, and I'm not going to get it right, so Melissa, I don't know if, forgive me, because this isn't my area of expertise. The way it was kind of explained to me is that $1.6 million, what normally, and I might be getting this wrong, normally would have sat in our free cash, which we would have then put into the formula for using, whether it be for capital or whatever.
It was free cash, yeah.
But we had to park it, and I believe it was at the request of, I thought it was DOR, to move it into general stabilization and not hold it. But I probably have like the specifics wrong. So it was really not, we're putting this away for a rainy day. This was, we need to just park it over here and then
Right,
have it
but
available
is
to bring
this
it back.
going into the operating budget for accounts in departments being used to balance the budget? Free cash in the past has been used for articles, not so much to balance the budget. The town's philosophy has always been, do not fund operating budgets with free cash, because it's not a guaranteed source next year.
That is a worthy principle. It's something that they measure, rating agencies measure recurring expenses versus recurring revenues. And, with free cash primarily, in an ideal world, the only operating stuff that you spend free cash on is making up your snow and ice deficit at...
Things we've done in the past is like the article just a little while ago with the chief, that stuff would have been put in and paid out of free cash. These once every 5-year expenses would be put into an article, so it doesn't get built into the budget, because let me tell you, in the past, we have missed, I had X amount of money, yeah, but that included $75,000 for some, well, I took that out, now I got a balanced budget. No. So that's why we did that. So if this 439 is being put in to fund line items in people's operational budgets, I think it's going to warrant some discussion.
And we're also,
The flip side of the 561 is going
560,
out of a million?
I'm sorry, when I said we committed over half, we committed less than half. I apologize.
yeah, the 561 is still there.
yep, no, all valid points. And don't forget the other flip side of this, and again, potatoes, I'm not sure, is that we're now elevating the snow and ice line
Right.
item to be more accurate, that we normally would have just flipped out of free cash.
Right.
So when you're like doing the
So I
balancing of the
wouldn't- I
scales,
wouldn't
it's kind of the
object to-
same,
to
it's like,
doing that.
which, right.
When I'm looking in a free cash column, at least, of that 439, at least 138 of it is in articles as well.
With 30% there.
Huh?
With 30% there.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't a portion of it set aside to pay for the expenses associated with retirements?
But that's already built into the budget, right?
That's part of
As an
it.
article.
37,000 is part of that, and 100,000 is for phase 2 of your lighting retrofit project.
100,000, yeah.
100,000, there. So that's the sum of those two, things. I did look back historically. You have occasionally made free cash contributions of a couple $100,000 to operations. Those are probably last minute decisions when you're making funding decisions overall. But, so it's not unprecedented, but not going to argue with you. Ideally, it doesn't go for any operating stuff except reconciling your snow and ice deficit, and maybe a couple of special town meeting fill-ins, but with line item transfer capabilities now, you don't have to do that. And when you were talking about your cruisers and other things like that, guys, cruisers ought to be paid out of the tax rate, in an ideal sense. They're replaceable every year, not a free cash thing. You ought to aspire to, equipment like that, that's, they don't have 5-year life expectancies. That should be coming out of the tax rate.
3 years? Life expectancy on a cruiser, 3 years?
Depends on what you're using them for, but yeah.
What do you have?
Road miles are one thing, the number of hours they're running, you almost treat them like construction vehicles. How many hours do you have on it is just as important as how many miles do you have on the cruiser,
But you can't track that, can you? Number of hours running?
Sure they can. That chief has a whole, he's presented that data to us the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Because they have meters on them.
Oh, they have meters on?
Oh, yeah? Like a cab, huh? I hope I'm not a passenger.
So I just added it up really quick between what's going to snow and ice, the retirement.
Snow and ice is coming out of special.
Yeah, you won't see that on page 5.
Sorry.
The annual is covered by page 5. But yeah, what is it, 281 or 291, I think, on the snow and ice? 281?
218.
218, okay.
See, part of what happened here is we got into a bad habit in the early 90s when we had 2000s, we had some very difficult cash flow issues. It was really bad. So we did pull the cruises and that type of stuff out of the budgets and said, can you wait a little while?
That was necessity
Yeah,
then, huh?
let's see what we have in free cash in the fall, and we'll get you one then, and we'll get you one later. So we're still digging out of a little bit of an old bad habit.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, overall, when you're benchmarking the town of East Bridgewater, your financials look pretty good, they really do. At least your undesignated fund balances and things like that are pretty good. And that's, I'm not trying to blow smoke at anybody, but that everybody has to sign on to that, and you have, overall. So, when I took my first look at you guys, I said, shit, oops, sorry.
Can you leave that out?
Sorry.
It's just amazing it hasn't been me
I
first.
apologize for that. So you know what? Largely, you've had pretty good practices. You've had to have had good practices to have the numbers that you do at these days. But, so, where else do I go, Madam Chairman? The water pollution abatement trust fund repayments are what they are, you've taken those things in as repayments. Overlay surplus, Paula gave me that number, and your conservation number from your filing fee stuff. You can spend up to half, I think 50% of that, and Concom gets to, keeps the rest for their, for some of their expenses. So the total, Madam Chairman, is 568, 594 on the revenue piece. And that $1.6 million stuff is an aberration, but it's there and it's in play.
Sorry, the 1.6, what we doing for that, so that's to balance budget this year, we don't usually pull that much in, we usually stabilization.
if we balance the budget, maybe we don't have to put any in, but I'm just, that 1.6 next year could be 1.
Right, so
Right?
that, so we're
And then it
looking
could
at
be
the
500.
1.6 plus the
Yeah,
400,000.
in 3 years from now, it's, how do we pay 1.6 million extra in the budget?
Especially when our run rate is running at minimum 2.5%.
Okay, but don't forget, close to 1.1 of that is funding your capital, your capital article.
Yep.
That's the funding source. You just voted to add the vests. So I think that brings your capital total to 1,072,000 something.
542.
542? Okay. So that's, of the 1,006,000, that went directly to. Remember, it originated as free cash. You flipped it into general stabilization because you didn't know what the heck what life was going to be like this time of year. So you did that in January. And so we just flipped out close to 1.1 million of that 1.6 to fund this year's capital project, capital budget.
I thought capital projects were being paid for out of the capital stabilization fund.
No, capital stabilization is to cover the payments, 5 years' worth of the payments of what we already have debt on. That we have, for the last 3+ years at least, we've been not been borrowing on capital purchases, we've been paying directly for those purchases from free
So we've
cash.
been reducing the overall debt.
Yes, so we're trying to reduce that overall debt, or get to a more reasonable debt number.
And by the way, I mistakenly, instead of calling it general stabilization, my first pass, I called it capital stabilization, and somebody went, "Meow!"
I may have overreacted,
Okay.
but that's how protective I am of the capital stabilization account, so.
Had enough?
Correspondent.
That's fine.
George Samia beat it into me,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other specific revenue questions we can answer? Or Jim can throw the we out.
I figured I'd just try and weigh you down, you'd be too tired of listening to.
Not this
We
group.
love this talk.
I mean, plus the other thing is there is going to be, in the next year or so, some additional home growth with the land over on Central Street that was sold.
Yeah,
and,
that's
you know,
all.
so,
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna add to the tax
And
base.
with any luck, the Route 18 corridor project, which we'll have a little discussion about later, hopefully will yield some. But I think, and this committee has always said this from day one, when we're doing this, how is this sustainable? When we're talking about contracts, when we're talking about, and I think this is, the conversation is not gonna stop. It's
been going on for
been going-
28 years.
And it's gonna, and it's potentially gonna get worse.
I've been here
right?
28 days.
But,
Welcome to the club, you've seen it all.
yeah, but
So-
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, there are some articles that could change the town a little bit with, from revenue with one of the articles, which would be very helpful. I mean, this town was, we were bolstered, we were in good shape when the landfill and everything was going on and the money was pouring in and we spent foolishly. But we've been able, we've maintained it, so I agree. There's been a great job done with this, but we do have to look at any growth opportunities we do have and what the community can support.
And I think we also should be, again, conservative and thinking about that, because again, we're still coming off of, right, and I know we sound a little bit like a broken record, but we're waiting for the other shoe to, the other shoe could still potentially drop, right? And we need to be, and we're positioned, you know, knock on wood, you look at some of our neighbors and they're not faring so well at the moment. So, you know, I'm glad we're not in that position. There are a lot of towns right now that are in incredibly bad shape.
Who's that?
Hanson, West Bridgewater had an emergency meeting last night to do the rah-rah about school funding. And
Wow.
oh yeah, there's, I mean, Jim could probably rattle them off better than I could, but there's layoffs happening, there's massive budget cuts, so. I think our conservative approach in continuing to have the conversations and the questions is what needs to continue to happen.
Definitely.
I gotta say, there's friction sometimes, but everybody pulls together at the
And we
end,
can't,
so.
you know, until it happens, we can't hang our hat on what-ifs and hopes and dreams, and,
Have to check
you know,
it
it's
before
gotta
that
be,
happens.
it's gotta be reality, you know? The good theoretical conversations of us trying to figure out how to,
I'm happy now.
That's for the conclusive FinCom dinner.
absolutely. Okay, all right, are we ready to move into articles? So if you don't want to take super duper notes on this section,
I'll take them, but I'll remember that you have that.
so, I don't know, I just started doing this, and it makes it easy, and that way we have the record of, yep, okay, so, all right. All right, so, let's do, so we're gonna kind of do from a logistics perspective. Dan's we're gonna just keep all of the motions consistent and all the seconds consistent, because it just makes for easy record keeping. Unless there's something that either one of you don't want to make a motion on or a second on, and then we can address it, but we'll kind of do that. So we'll bring up the article. It's been so long since we voted, seriously, on anything. First of all, we'll determine whether or not we are voting on, because there's a couple here in the book, Jim, that you have us voting on that I don't think we will vote on.
Okay.
I think there's maybe only one. So we'll determine, we'll kind of just identify the article, make a determination if we're voting on it, and then if Dan, if you want to make the motion, and then we can discuss it.
Yep.
In a second, and then we'll discuss it, so. Right, so Article 1. Yeah, so we're starting obviously with the special. So Article 1 is, are we ultimately going to pass this, Jim, or?
Perhaps so. We do have one contract up for ratification marked up for next Tuesday's Selectmen's agenda. And perhaps by the end of the fiscal year, I don't think by town meeting, you know, we might have another, but, you know, there's two union contracts, but for the moment, you're looking at a passover here.
Okay, so one we're going to say is going to be a Passover. Okay. All right, so Article 2 is our snow and ice article. So I should probably
How do you want me to do
I know,
this?
it's like all of a sudden it blanked, I don't even remember how we did it.
Do you want me to make?
Just make a motion,
How about I make the motion to recommend the article and the dollar amount?
Yeah.
All right. So Article 2 is to raise and appropriate funds to transfer for the snow and ice expense. I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the article in the amount of $218,437.62.
Second?
discussion. No discussion because we already had it all? That's easy.
Easy one.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Huh?
On a mission.
I am on a mission, and now I'm kind of like I've got fuzzy all of a sudden. Okay. I know, really.
Yeah.
Hey, we're on camera.
They don't know what.
All right. Okay, I think that's the end of it. Article.
Late to this one.
No, sorry. Okay, Article 3. Okay, so Article 3 is a request by the fire chief to cover on-the-job injury or a firefighter who's obviously out due to injury.
So the chief's requesting to transfer from the ambulance receipts to additional compensation of $20,000. I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the article as written.
Second?
Okay, any discussion?
Do we know our said firefighters back to work? Are they still out?
They're not back, I believe, yeah.
So how is it that this one is just 20,000 and the other one, the snow and ice, is down to the penny? It seems kind of odd. I mean, is the compensation rounded
So
like,
he
You sound like me downstairs. Why aren't you guys rounding?
well, it's like to the penny for a $218,000 expenditure.
Well, because he has invoices in hand that he can add up, whereas this is an estimate of the hours or the, what the dollar amount's
He'll
gonna
be by the end of the,
be. Yeah, by the end of it, so it's,
but he has
Just an
to pay
estimate.
it overtime and extra.
Oh, so that's a
He knows-
protection, Melissa?
yeah, he knows
Yeah, 'cause this is-
what it's gonna be,
this
but
is
not to the
special
penny, like, he's not gonna do
compensation.
pennies.
He knows it to the
Right.
1,000, okay. Sounds
Versus,
good.
versus invoices in hand.
Right.
Okay, any other discussion? Great, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That was all unanimous, I couldn't look around fast. Okay, Article 4. Oh, this actually didn't even come up, okay. I thought this was actually gonna come up earlier in the evening, and it didn't. Okay, so Article 4. So I had to refresh my memory on this, so I'm gonna refresh your memory on it too, because I completely forgot. So when the chief came and talked to us in
Like December, wasn't it? Something like
March,
that?
no,
Oh.
it was just not that long ago, March, I think, maybe
Oh,
it
that
was.
one, okay.
About the purchase of firearms
Yeah,
and the
right,
need
yeah.
for the firearms.
6 hours.
Yep, what I had forgotten was that what had happened was they had originally been approved last year to purchase tasers through capital. They wound up being able to purchase the tasers through their budget, and what they did is they asked for a reappropriation of the taser money to cover the first half of the firearm money. We then approved a transfer for the second half of the firearm money. So this is an article to reappropriate the capital taser money towards that, if that makes sense.
You think the word appropriation instead of expenses after unexpended and the explanation would be clearer? Can I change that?
Yeah, because you don't expend expenses, do you?
I know, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll change that.
yep, perfect. Okay, so,
So I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend Article 4 as written.
Second?
any discussion?
I think you just rewrite it the way he said to rewrite it, right? Not as it's written.
Well, as it will be written when he edits it.
Oh, as it will be written, yeah.
Yeah, it's just an explanation, it's not part of the article.
Right.
Yep. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. Okay, so Article 5, we're passing over, because that's what we just addressed with the chief by placing it into capital. Sorry, okay. Article 6 is actually a housekeeping article. You want to make the, I should probably have you make the motion first, and then I can do the explanation. That probably is the more appropriate way to do it.
Okay. I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend Article 6 as written.
Thank you. Okay, so accounting issue with the East Bridgewater Arts Council. Funds were in error, taken from one account versus their other account, from a grant account to a regular expense account. So this is simply an article to correct that accounting error. Any questions? Additional discussion? Perfect. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Article 7. One.
Oh, that's okay, Article 7. I make a motion to, for the Finance Committee to recommend approval of the article as written.
Second. Thank you. Okay, so this article is, I guess we'll call it Phase 2 of the Route 18 corridor project that has been very successfully moving forward. I'm happy to report. So this is to fund the next level of work with the engineering company. Can we mention any good progress, Jim? Can I?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if it was.
I thought you said no.
I didn't know. So,
I'm not sure Peter's wiped the smile off his face yet. We got a letter of intent from the city of Brockton. You know, the ante is 100,000 gallons of sewer capacity. You know, there could be more growth in that number at the end, but a letter of intent is not a lawful commitment, but it's a huge breakthrough. It really is. At some point in time, you'll see a so-called intermunicipal agreement between the city of Brockton and East Bridgewater. Once you know, they've got more work to do on, you know, hydraulics. Actually, they're meeting with planning professionals also to project out. If you've ever seen studies, they can project out what the zoning is going to be and what the maximum build-out number is going to have for demand on capacity and all of those things like that. So that's the sort of thing that this 50,000 is going for. It was part and parcel of an article in, I guess last year or so, well, when you said Phase 2.
yeah, I don't think we did it as an article. I think we did it as
Article
a...
5 of the December 2016
transfer
special
on it.
town meeting is when you first started. So I think, frankly, with any luck, you'll see this sort of thing come up again, because that means you're going deeper into the, you know, deeper into the project. But
Kevin, any color commentary on your, as our liaison?
No, not much.
Okay.
So who like runs the project? That's the Selectmen? Peter?
He's spearheading it, absolutely.
He's the point of the spear on this one, but ultimately, the agreement has to be between the town, Board of Selectmen. IMAs, the Selectmen are authorized to enter into those things, and probably the mayor's office and/or city council. But the letter of intent was signed by the mayor and the city solicitor. So step one.
It is good news.
Or step two.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Perfect. Great. All those in favor of Article 7 as written, aye?
And it's not in the book, Madam Chairman, but we did pull an explanation together.
Okay.
On that, so it'll be in the next version.
Perfect, thank you.
Wow, Madam Chairman instead of hey you, huh?
I'm moving up in the world. I'm gonna start working on my wig next.
There you go.
Just saying.
Speak us for that.
Your time will be next
Although I still answer to hey, so.
Chiefs tried to get me to call them by their first names, I won't. Anyone, any ranking officer, that kind of stuff, old habits die hard, so
I work with doctors, and I do the same. Even if they're younger than me, I always still call them doctor. Doc, yeah. All right, so now we're gonna move into annual town meeting articles. All right, so Article 1 is a housekeeping, are you gonna move forward with a consent agenda this meeting?
yeah, it's printed in the book.
Okay, you are, okay, so we typically do not vote on Article 1.
Appendix 3, Madam Chairman, page 32, is the consent agenda. So that's Articles 1, 4, 5, 7, and 8.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna probably still go through, because we typically vote 8, I think. Right, perfect. And if everybody is okay with it, I'd like to just move over to, and we'll do 2 at the end, which is the omnibus budget.
That's fine.
Is that okay? Everybody good with that? All right, so Article 3, Dan, you can take it away.
Article 3 is the detail of the capital requests approved by Capital Committee. I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend Article 3 as written.
Second?
Any conversation or questions or comments, discussion?
I just have, why does it say the Finance Committee will give its report at town meeting
I don't
on
know,
the
I don't-
capital
I was-
articles? Usually we just vote them and
Yeah.
have a recommendation.
They'll change that, that's why it's highlighted.
Okay.
Yep.
These things will change.
You don't want to do that at town meeting, is that what you're saying?
Not really.
All right, so no discussion, and all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Why did we skip number 2?
As I just said, we're going to do the omnibus budget at the end,
Oh, good.
just to kind of blow through, in case we get too caught up. Okay. Article 4, we do typically vote Article 4, so,
Article 4 just authorizes the Board of Selectmen to apply for state and federal grants or expend money received as outlined in grant applications. I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the article as written.
Second?
again, just housekeeping to allow us to accept grants. Any other discussion? No? Perfect, excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. I lost my place now, wait a minute. 4.
Article 5 allows the town to accept and expend monies available through the Commonwealth for Chapter 90 type construction, reconstruction of public ways. I make a recommendation that the Finance Committee recommend the article as written.
Second?
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion? And housekeeping article. Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
6. Yes, we do typically vote on 6 as well.
So Article 6 allows the town to collect certain unpaid code violation fees by placing a lien on real estate bills, which is done, unpaid water, sewer, trash fees. I make a recommendation that the Finance Committee recommend the article as written.
Second?
Now, this is not a consent agenda item, right? Is this a first time?
No, I do not believe it is. No, it's a first-time thing.
It's a first time. Yep. I couldn't remember either. All right, any discussion? Melissa, anything you'd like to comment on?
No, it just says, it's just an easier process than trying to take them to small claims court, et cetera. A lot of times,
about, Melissa?
like code violations that, might go out and put in, you know, you're in a junkyard and you're, whatever. And if they go unpaid, eventually, you're never really gonna have a penalty, or there's no incentive to take them to court. We can always put it as a lien on their real estate taxes, ultimately, the real estate taxes get paid, in general.
How vigorously do we enforce that now?
You'd have to talk to Patrick. Because I can't do it, so I don't know what they do. I was just asked if they could put them onto real estate bills, so I looked into it. We hadn't accepted this small portion back in 1923 when we accepted putting water liens on real estate bills, so we have to do that.
Getting up with the times.
You've got a town bylaw, non-criminal disposition, which allows you to, to assess fines, for violations. You see the building inspector more often than anyone else. These days, when you count to 3, the party cited can take the matter to court. Sometimes they're anxious to get the second and third ones, but there are some places that just languish and languish and languish, and this gives a little more, I won't call muscle, but it gives a little more room to that part of our process, the non-criminal disposition process.
Great. Any other discussion?
How much fees are unpaid currently?
And that's building,
Take a look at your next tax bill. Yours. I'm kidding.
Excellent. All right, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Article 7. Yeah, we have been voting on this one in the past.
Article 7 adopts a mass general law that permits the Board of Assessors to increase the amount of the exemption for the blind, elderly, widowed, and disabled veterans by 50%. I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend approval of the article as written.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? This is again a consent agenda, so this is a housekeeping article. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, and Article 8 we do also vote on.
Article seeks to renew the authorization to use the funds collected through fees for support of the department's activities. Funds are established under the bylaws of the town. It's for COA programs and minibus, recreation commission, passport photos and fees, public library, etc. I recommend that the Finance Committee recommend approval of Article 8 as written.
Second?
Are these fees limits increased at all, or are they staying the same in level?
I think they've been the same the last.
Same as last year.
Because I think when they passed the article for these, there was a limit in each article, so.
Yeah, these are the limits, but I don't think they've changed in the last at least 2 to 3 years, in my memory.
And Madam Chairman, my understanding of the law, unless it's changed in the last year or two, is that any time you change the limit, okay, you've got to pull it, that's one of your consent calendar items, right? If there's a change in that limit, let's just say passport photo fees, you've got to pull that out of the consent article, and you've got to vote it as a separate article, when you raise that cap.
Any additional discussion? No? Great, all those in favor? Aye.
I have a question.
Yep,
Why would we vote on Article 9?
we are not.
Okay, all right.
No, we are not. So 9 is one of the ones we are not voting on. Actually,
So I should delete the Finance Committee reference at the end of it, Madam Chairman?
yes, please. Yes, that would not be us article. Okay, Article 10 is a Finance Committee article.
Article 10, so the town's been working with National Grid to identify efficiency projects that could yield a savings over time with our electrical use. Article 10 transfers from free cash $100,000 to perform these. I recommend that the Finance Committee approve Article 10 as written.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. Discussion. So this is, I'll just give my quick 2 cents. This is Phase 2 of the project that that Brian had brought to us last year. I guess it's been a year already. I believe half of the high school was done. Does that sound right? And this in some other buildings, and this will be phase 2 of that process. And I believe he had talked that this had, again, correct me if I'm wrong, a 3 to 4 year return on the investment.
Correct.
In savings. Any other questions or discussion?
So who's managing it now? Is that you, Jim?
Brian Kiley, I believe.
Yeah.
Who is-
Facilities, Brian Kiley.
What's he do?
He's the facilities.
Oh,
He runs all the facilities in town.
For general government and school,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, any other discussion? Great, all those in favor of Article 10?
Aye.
Is everybody right? We are going to vote on 11.
Article 11 allows the DPW to join a consortium of 17 area towns that will assist with trash and recycling-related cost savings programs. I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend approval of Article 11 as written.
Second?
Okay, and as everybody, I think, saw John Haynes's email, who was nice enough to send us an explanation on this. Any additional questions to it?
I don't think I saw the email.
I just called you and I.
Oh, seriously?
Oh, no,
Well, then
I was on there too.
You are?
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
Oh, maybe
yeah.
it went to liaisons.
Liaisons and chair.
I apologize, I thought it went to the whole committee.
Is there any cost?
Let me read the email to you, hold on.
Did you send it?
Well, I at least want to tell you what it, well, I guess it kind of is very specific in the description. So basically, they're going to enter into this agreement. They've been trying, my understanding is they've been trying to get into this consortium for a while, and that they finally have had the opportunity, and that is the hope that they will have some buying power, if you will, to kind of help with our, especially with our trash and recycling.
There is such volatility in
Yeah.
that part of the equation, you know, the trash collection cost and stuff.
Yep.
That anything.
Any help.
Any help that you can get, you know, pony up with the other towns and see.
Yeah, I don't believe there's a cost to be in the consortium. I believe it was just kind of administrative.
I haven't seen one, unlike Sursedge where there's like a $4,000 or $5,000 a year
There's no
expense.
cost indicated.
That's my knowledge.
Yeah. The hope, and the reason kind of we're voting on it is because it's a hopeful, that's kind of a group purchasing type environment, so, with a financial angle. Yep. All right, any additional discussion? Great, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, yes.
Okay, yes, 12, yes.
Article 12 just transfers from free cash, $37,791, to an account designated for contractual obligations. It's for employees who are retiring, that have vacation buyback, sick buyback, all kinds of things that are tied to the union contracts. I recommend the Finance Committee recommend approval of Article 12 as written.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? Nope.
How many people are retiring this year?
Probably like one.
One?
Yeah, I don't think.
I think it was two.
I think they might,
I think, yeah,
yeah,
it
don't
was,
hold me to this, I think it's 2.
yeah.
Yeah, please don't hold me to
I
that.
was going to say 2 or 3.
But that's the town hall, right, not just,
Yeah.
no library.
It's like, and any town's gonna be like that, the numbers get high very easily, one or
Yeah.
2 people.
This seems reasonable. Any other discussion? Great, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and yes to 13 as well.
So Article 13, if you remember last year, the fire department borrowed from capital stabilization to purchase the tower truck. So this article provides a transfer from the ambulance account back to the capital stabilization to reimburse a portion of the purchase of Tower 1, which he had agreed to do over, I think it was 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
So I recommend that the Finance Committee recommend approval of Article 13 as written.
Second?
Any additional discussion? Making his first loan payment
That's right.
on time. We like it.
Is the truck here now? Get the truck.
You get to ride it if he doesn't pay.
I don't think the truck has
I haven't
arrived
seen
yet,
it
right?
yet.
Do we know? No?
No.
Zach's the fire truck, I
I was
think.
talking to the guy the other day.
No, and we knew that there was, I think, was gonna be a pretty substantial lead on it.
Pay now.
Huh?
Why would you pay now? You can get the truck.
Really? Because we're the lender. Any additional discussion? Great, all those in favor? Aye.
And we'll fix the spelling errors in the article.
Okay, so, actually, that is the end, well, except we have to go back to 2, but that's the end of the regular articles for us. All right. Yeah. Nope. You know my
So-
opinion.
You want to stay off of that one?
Would the finance committee give an opinion on 16, because it could impact us financially and
Didn't we do that
our
last?
revenues?
We did that last
We didn't
time, right?
vote though, did we?
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, we
Did
were
we?
split
did.
on whether to vote or not.
I think we did.
I think we
And I think
voted.
we voted to vote. I think I changed my vote at the end. Yeah.
I will do whatever the committee wants.
I think there's a
Oh, do we
lot.
have time to, do we need a few minutes to process?
It's been a couple years since the original vote, right?
And it's not the same as the
And it's
original
not the
vote.
original,
Yeah.
right.
It's a different angle and a different slant. Is there a desire to,
Oh, how was that meeting?
oh, from the very
Oh, yeah,
original?
because that, yeah.
Right, because is this specific to, this isn't retail?
This is this, I think.
It's the same as
thing
last
as what we
year.
voted last year.
Last year.
Right.
Yeah, not the original one, though.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'm
So
sorry,
we-
we're talking about, I was going back a
Oh,
couple
yeah.
years, yeah.
So we voted on a prior article here tonight because it had potential financial implications in the
Okay,
town.
then absolutely,
Okay?
let's do it.
We should stay the same course. This is something that has a potential significant financial impact to the town, and I think it's worth a little discussion and a vote, and if we're asked our opinion, either we give it as a group or we give it individually.
I agree.
Perfectly fine.
So if somebody wants to make a motion, and then we can have some discussion, we can talk about it.
So Article 16 is to see if the town will vote to amend zoning bylaws that are tied to marijuana cultivators and marijuana product manufacturers. I will make a recommendation that the Finance Committee recommend Article 16 as written.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
Just as a point of information, the planning board voted 6-1 in favor of that.
Good.
Excellent.
So,
They did a public hearing on it as well.
so having some discussion, oh, go ahead. What?
They said you attended the public hearing.
Yeah, I was there.
You were the only one.
I was like, is there a big
I was
crowd?
representing the public.
There you go, Dave.
So, I wanted to be clear while I was at this meeting what this really meant. And I think it's important that the folks in the town really understand what this means. It's a cultivation facility. It's basically a farm indoors. There's no public access, there's no public sales, there's no traffic conditions. It'd be very low impact to our infrastructure. I know that this was a very controversial subject at town meeting a year ago or so, and I look around these other towns, and it's been a boon to them. I mean, I'm gonna just tell you what I told you earlier. I was driving Route 18 from Weymouth. I saw a big sign that said Bud. I said, oh, a flower shop, okay? Because I was thinking someday on the way home from work, I'm gonna go in and get some flowers to surprise my wife.
It's going to be very happy.
But, as I drove by, the windows were blocked off, you couldn't see inside. I said, maybe they're not open yet. So I looked it up, and it's a dispensary, okay? So I understand our town, it's a nice, small, homey environment, et cetera. And I personally am not necessarily in favor of dispensaries in this town, et cetera. We couldn't handle the traffic, and it just would be a nightmare. But I look at this a little bit differently, and I'm not speaking for the board here, is that it's a real secure, enclosed environment. I've been in these types of environments not for this particular thing, but a farm for lettuce, and it's doing this whole co-op and stuff, and the way they're run. And this is highly regulated. So to have a building collecting taxes and perhaps community impact funds, it's better than having a dump here. And you know what? It doesn't stink, maybe, okay? But it's a farm. We're a farming community, okay? But I don't see a drastic impact on the town. So for what we are limited in our revenue opportunities, we're limited in our growth. You know, maybe the hooking up to the sewer system here in town might help a little bit, but it will not have the impact of what this potentially could have for us. So I just want, I hope the folks who are bringing this article have a good discussion about that and people know what this really is. Because it's not meant to scare people, there's not gonna be big signs on it and stuff like that. But I just hope that we don't cut off our nose to spite our face here. I mean, I think it's a good compromise from where we were last year. You can't do this, you can't do this, and you can't do this. Ooh, maybe we should think about that now. But we do want to try to do this.
Oh, to the point you also made, look at all the towns around us and those towns, and you know, they're not seeing the, you know, but they're not seeing the rise in crime, they're not seeing the traffic because they're everywhere now. There's now not just one dispensary that everybody's going to, now there's literally one in most towns around us.
If not more.
If not more than one. Yeah.
And this is a cultivation facility, it's not a dispensary.
It's a very, to your point, I mean, because we've looked at it from a banking perspective, and it's very regulated. I mean, those plants are tagged and tracked from the time they're a seed until they're, you know, through the whole process, and the state tracks everything, so there's a lot of controls in place.
So,
Well spoken, Mr. Walsh.
Do you steal all your thunder?
No, I've worked, you know, done my other job. I've worked a little bit with this, with folks in the industry, and I couldn't stress, you know, more the idea of the regulation. You know, state is serious about it. You don't mess around with the stuff, and it's, again, I think it's a very low impact and potentially positive.
And we need to be thinking outside the box, because as we talked about with revenue earlier. You know, we can't be dependent on the check. Any other discussion? On Article 15. 16, excuse me. Yep. All of those in favor of Article 16, say aye.
Aye.
So was that unanimous? I just want to make sure I get it. Okay.
Madam Chairman, if you took a position on 16, for consistency's sake, perhaps you want to do the same with 17.
I just saw that.
I think they seek to accomplish the same thing, but if you do one, you must do both the town bylaw and the zoning bylaw.
So Article 17 is an article to see if the town will vote to amend general bylaws, Part 9, marijuana not medically prescribed, by updating the language that would tie to Article 16. I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend Article 17 as written.
Second.
Didn't even get to say my line. Any additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Kevin, I don't know where you stand on the issue.
I'm an investor.
All right.
Off the record, Kevin.
All right, and... Nope, not, are you kidding me? We gotta do Article 2.
Oh, yeah, right.
How do you want to see that?
Go through it like the micro machines, man.
No. Well, there's kind of two parts to it. So last year, we were lucky enough to be able to do it as written because it's the elected officials and boards' salaries as well as the omnibus budget, which we know we now need to include water and solid waste in. So we could we could just vote the bottom line of the omnibus budget, and then just vote as written for the salaries, I believe, if everybody is comfortable with that.
This budget is shown on the worksheet, but
Absolutely, that's, yeah. Exactly
I
what
have the
said, right?
electronic. I have the electronic one, so I'm not sure. I just want to make sure I have the right thing in front of me.
You have my page? That's, of course, if everybody is okay in agreement with proceeding that way.
we should go line by line.
Yeah? I'm game.
You know what, if you would just let Kevin speak about that one article.
So is this the final budget then? Is this the final number?
Yep.
Final, okay, good.
Trust me, the file name even says, Melissa, what is it, how many finals do I have in the line?
Final seven.
Final.
3 finals in the name of the file.
I am doing the condensed version that we put in right before this last year. I just didn't get it finished.
So basically, it'll be
I got
the-
confused when I
that.
started seeing water, and I'm like, wait, that's not it, and then I'm like, oh, all right, never mind.
But you're gonna have it all
Last year was
included,
different. I
because last year we had it
Ju-
separate.
Exactly
Yeah.
like last year's, except for we'll have water and sewer, solid waste, I'm sorry, in it as well. So just, it's not gonna just be this and have them, well, what was that budget figure we're looking at? So we'll have those.
And that's gonna be, we just want to be prepared because it's different than how it was presented last year, so.
The only difference would be the solid waste and
And
water.
water, right, 'cause they were completely out.
That was the first and only year that
I
was
know.
ever done.
I know. So again, just keeping that in mind for town meeting.
I think it's because
And did you have an OPEB contribution in this year's operating budget?
Yes, we did. We had an OPEB contribution.
50,000 of that free cash is considered not just in support of the debt service.
that's actually a good point,
portion,
thank you.
But the $50,000 OPEB contribution.
Because we did
I forgot
roll that
that
in.
before. Yeah.
It's like the 300-year mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so, we've talked that through. So I think what we should do is we could do a general description of what it is we're doing, and then the motion can be bottom line.
Is that on the next piece of paper?
Page break.
You've been working this thing hard.
I'm just making sure he's paying attention.
Starting to get nervous.
He's like, oh my God, here's my calculator.
Right before.
So you want the
We'll do,
final, the bottom line number?
yep,
Okay.
which,
All right.
I just took a page and I'm in that.
While you're getting yourself ready for that, can I just make a comment?
Sure.
Laura in particular, suffered through the transition, that took place in my office, and for a while, for the first couple of 3 weeks, wasn't getting any help from me, as I was getting myself oriented and all of that, so you guys had this.
Don't go by that.
You guys had this gap and stuff, so.
We have to go by this.
It's no baloney between the finance staff and Rebecca and Laura. This thing is in this kind of shape tonight because of their efforts. She probably wouldn't say it, but.
3, 2,
How bad was it when the other guy left?
What's that?
How bad was it when the other guy left?
I can see right.
Oh,
Largely, the expenditure
We were-
portion of your budget was done.
yeah.
Most
Well,
of the
no,
revenue
it
stuff was
just
done.
transitional.
But it's, let's get this thing done.
Yeah.
Let's get this thing done was the cry that I was hearing, and we did the best we could. But here we are.
And I will echo that the finance team and Jim were up to the task and listening to me push hard. So I appreciate it and thank you.
No, it's no easy task.
Okay, so Article 2, this article advances the operating budget for the town for the fiscal year that begins on July 1st. The Finance Committee has balanced the available revenue with the department requests and is advancing this budget for the approval of town meeting. I make a recommendation that the Finance Committee recommend approval of the article as written with a total fiscal '22 budget of $53,633,261.14.
We've got a motion and a second. So, discussion.
So that leaves us with still some positive cash from the revenues. Is there any of that gonna go into stabilization fund? Is there an opportunity?
We don't have an article in the warrants closed, so.
You can address it in the fall.
Okay, all right.
Next one, we'll also know there's a possibility that there's going to be a $47,000 grant towards Southeast Regional, but first they said vote it because we're giving it to you, and then they said, wait, the House took it out. No, the Senate took it out, the House put it in. You don't have it, you do have it, so we had to vote the whole, so right there we might have another 50.
So we're hoping there's some adjustments that
So by
funnel in
fall, we
eventually.
should have a better idea of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. We used to have a fall town meeting.
Yeah.
All the time, because these are just projections, and that's where adjustments were made. So I'm glad to hear that we're looking in that direction again, instead of
You
trying
did
to
as
hold off
written.
to
You
January
did
or
as written and then
something.
amended to
This
this.
is good. All right.
Do you think we need more detail?
Only reason we hold out for January was, as you know, what happened last year.
Actually, Melissa,
That meant-
the House did not include it, the Senate did.
Oh, I thought
So when
the
the
other
state
way
budget goes to
around. It was in,
conference.
then it was out, then it was in.
Yeah, so we're recommending the higher appropriation.
Right.
In case we don't get it, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a big moment. Any other discussion?
Well, I just want to say, I'm starting to think this guy might know what he's talking about. So.
Well, thank you, but
All right.
All right, all those in favor of Article 2, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that was unanimous. I lost my paper, wait a minute. All right, motion, Article 2 passed, and with that, we have completed our obligation this year for the budget. So, congratulations.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all over all the time.
No, thank you, Laura. Holding all that
So I
stuff.
didn't end up missing that many meetings.
No, you did not. You missed a few, no, you didn't, I got your emails too.
there were moments,
There were moments.
there were anxious moments, let's just say that.
The full
Yeah.
group meetings, I did not miss.
No. So again, thank you guys. I know this has been, again, yet and still another wonky year. I keep saying, one of these years, we're gonna get a normal one, I swear. But, so thank you, that was very wonderful that we passed the finish line. So real quick, let's just do a quick next meeting discussion. So one other item, and Jim, actually, I need you to hear this because I haven't told you yet, that I'm actually not going to be at town meeting. So I needed to tell Dan before I told him.
You said that was possible, you said that was possible that you would.
I had a previous trip planned before they postponed town meeting, so
Yep.
I'm not going to be at town meeting. Dan's totally got it, though, so I'm not worried about it. So the Board of Selectmen meeting there's going to be a Board of Selectmen meeting on Tuesday, May 25th, which will be the Board of Selectmen and / moderator review meeting, which is typically the meeting that we run through the warrant, who's going to say what. It's not a big deal. Ours is pretty simple, but certainly if you can attend, that would be great. And then, of course, town meeting is Monday, the 14th at 7 PM. Have a great time. I will be thinking of you all.
I'll text you.
Please, I mean, I'll be on a plane.
I can FaceTime with you.
I'll be
so
on
that
a
you're
plane,
there.
and I don't think it has Wi-Fi. Just saying. And then there will be one more joint meeting of the Finance Committee and Board of Selectmen's meeting to be determined. I want to say, I think we said it was June 15th, but I want to confirm that.
Day after town meeting.
Day after town meeting to do year-end transfers. So we would need at least 4 members to attend that meeting. So we'll reach out and let you know when we have that definitively.
Yeah.
Special town meeting start, yes, 7 o'clock start time. So, I know, seriously. Any further business, further questions, further comments?
Oh, good, I think you did a good
Awesome,
job.
I think we all did a great
Motion to
job.
adjourn?
I will, okay, there you go. I don't even have to ask for it. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned at
Man, can we make it
7.
home?